Um, I wanted to film outside today because I thought it's going to be nice and sunny, and I haven't seen sunlight all week. Uh, but as you can tell, that's not going to happen. You know what? I'm just going to try vlogging this intro and see how that goes. I hope the wind isn't too loud. But anyway, welcome to episode 3 of me trying to build my side project and documenting it for everyone to see. If you don't know me from previous videos, my name is Karan. I am a graduate software engineer in London. And I'm trying to make this series to show the process behind me setting up my next side project. Before I go on to the updates for this episode, I'm sorry if the wind is too loud, but before I go on to the updates of this episode, I've gotten some feedback that you'd like to know more about who Kane is, and that's because I brought him on as a partner in this video, but told you nothing about him. He's a bit camera shy, so I'm going to just try to do him some justice by giving you a brief background on him. I'm just in the middle of the trail here. I hope no one passes by, otherwise it's gonna feel really awkward because I'm just squatting in front of a bench right now. Anyway, on to the story of how I know Kane and how he came on board with this whole thing. When I finished my third year of uni, in my summer break I decided to learn how to code, and I decided to do this by joining a bootcamp in London. And this was at General Assembly, which basically is like this institution where you can go and learn how to code. There's a classroom and you have a cohort of a bunch of people who are also trying to learn how to code with you. And one of these people in my classroom was Kane. He was just a year older than me. He is just a year older than me. But at the time I think he was 21. And someone just passed me by. Oh, great. He was just 21 at the time, and he still hadn't been to uni. He didn't really know what he wanted to do in life at that point. He was just interested in tech broadly. And after the bootcamp, we became quite good friends. We've kept in touch, and we've always been talking about different businesses that we could do together. And one of these businesses, turned out to be what I'm trying to do now. Well, I wouldn't even call it a business. I guess we've always just been interested in collaborating with each other on projects. We've done small things in the past here and there, but this is kind of, I guess, a more formal relationship, if you want to call it that. But in terms of Kane's background, after the bootcamp, he went on to work for a startup. That startup got acquired by this big fintech company. The fintech company laid him off, gave him a nice severance package, and now he's unemployed and bored, and that's how he's on this project. So there you go, some background. I think I should really mention the skills he has, because I think I just made him sound like he's lost in life. But no, when he was at the startup, he was a developer, and then when he got acquired, he started doing some product management work. So he really has an idea, he has a good idea of how you build products for consumers and what goes into it. And then generally we just share a lot of common interests in terms of helping the next generation of student entrepreneurs. So these are a few reasons as to why he's a good fit to work on this project with me. That was eventful. So now that you've been acquainted with Kane, let's talk about what we've been up to. Bear in mind that I didn't publish a video last week, so this video is going to cover updates for the past 2 weeks. We started the week by setting up some tooling so that Kane and I could collaborate effectively. Until now, we've just been using iMessage, and there's only so much that we can do on there. We both used Notion in the past and decided to get a team plan on it, as it's quite flexible, which is ideal for what we need to do right now. We set up the Notion workspace, created a list of people that we wanted to interview, divided that up, and started reaching out to people. So I think Kane managed to do around 3 to 4 interviews over the past 2 weeks. And we got a Zoom subscription for each of our accounts so that we could keep a recording of it. And then once he's done with his interviews, he uploads it, and then I take a look at it and write my notes as well. And then he does the same for my interviews. But given that I've had a pretty ridiculous couple of weeks at work, I only managed to do 1 interview. So yeah, the intention for the next week is to get at least a few more in before we kind of end our interview sessions and start to extract some insights from what we're learning from people. So, of the one interview that I did end up having, it turned out to be quite insightful and quite relevant. That's because it was with a person called Eleni, and her background was very applicable to what we were looking for in terms of the market we're trying to serve and also just the types of insight we're looking to receive.
When you have other things going on, like writing a dissertation or having exams, and also in this case, having, a job, having the potential of a million other ideas, when do you jump ship? At what point do you say, okay, we've given this the shot it deserves, but it's time to move on?
After the interview, I started to think about whether Eleni could be a good fit for what we're trying to do with this project and whether she could actually really help propel us forward with her background and just the insights that she has. I spoke to this. I spoke to this. I spoke about this with Kane, and he decided to have a conversation with Eleni as well, just to understand what her motivations are and what she's looking to get out of it if she does decide to come on board. In the end, after Kane's conversation with her, we decided that while she seems like a really good candidate, I don't know why I'm making it sound so formal, but while she seems like a really good person to bring on board, I think it's too early right now, given that we just in the exploration stages of this project. We have no idea where this is going to go and what she would be required to do if she comes on board. So we've just put a pin in that for now, and we'll pick it up when we have a better idea of the direction that we're headed in. Given that I only had one interview scheduled, I started reaching out to a few more people. I also did some research on what other things were out there that were trying to tackle the same space of student entrepreneurship. I found a couple of interesting initiatives and threw them on our Notion for me to discuss with Kane later. I think it's important to not look at other people in the space as your competitors necessarily. I think there's more to be gained by looking at people as potential partners instead of considering this whole thing as a zero-sum game where there has to be winners and losers. One more thing I wanted to highlight about the past 2 weeks was the fact that how important it is to have a balance while you're doing, a day job and then also trying to work on something on the side and then trying to balance all the other stuff that you have going on in your life in terms of exercise, chores, cooking, whatever it may be. And I know it's really cliche to talk about work-life balance, and there's plenty of videos and articles out there, but I want to share just my personal experience so far with this project and how I've been trying to keep things together. The past 2 weeks were quite difficult in terms of just work, because I'm working on something that I find quite challenging, and I had quite a few late evenings, and then by the time I was done with work, I had very little time or motivation or just brain cells left to actually do anything on this project on the side. And oftentimes I felt guilty that Kane was, out there reaching out to people, having more interviews, whereas I was not pulling my weight. And I think in just times like these, it's important to communicate with whoever you're working with and just establish those expectations, just so you don't beat yourself up over really not giving the entirety of your life and time towards just working. So yeah, just wanted to share that. One more thing I wanted to share was just the importance of exercise for me. Again, it's a super cliche thing to say, exercise makes you feel better. Yes, but more specifically, I find that even if I do half an hour of exercise, I just have much more energy to survive the next day, if you want to even call it that. It's not even surviving, just going through the day not feeling miserable. And I think that you exercise and that effect lasts for, I think, roughly 2 days, and then you just got to keep topping up that fuel tank. You just got to keep exercising to keep those energy levels high, because there's no point if you overwork yourself and then you start eating junk food and then sleeping well and then just the rest of your life is in shambles but you're churning out work. That's not really a fun way to do things and live life. So that's something I've observed as well. So in terms of recapping what happened in the last 2 weeks, we set up a Notion workspace with a list of people that we want to reach out to. We reached out to those people, had a few interviews, have some more interviews scheduled for next week. We also decided whether or not to bring someone else on board, put a pin in that for now. And then there was just some general research and conversations around understanding the student entrepreneurship space. In terms of our plans for the next week and the week after, things I think are going to be largely unchanged. We're still going to be reaching out to as many people as we can and trying to schedule as many interviews as possible. The deadline that I had set up for concluding this interview phase was 20 November, and today is already the 14th, right? So we have less than a week to actually conclude this phase. And Kane and I think that we still don't have enough interviews to get meaningful insight. So I'm not sure whether we're going to push that deadline or just work with what we get. But yeah, let's see. The intention for next week is to just speak to as many people as possible, make as thorough notes as we can from each of those interviews, and then we'll see what we end up with. All right, that is everything I wanted to share in terms of our updates over the last 2 weeks. Here's to hoping that the next 2 weeks are much more productive than the past two. Thank you very much for all your support. Thank you very much for watching these videos and watching me do this one in my running shirt for some reason. And yeah, have a nice day.